Deep within the woods of Wisconsin, there was a village that had been forgotten about for many years. But what happens when someone stumbles across it? Well, today we get to find out. Our story begins with a young man named Sam who had always been fascinated by maps. He loved exploring old atlases and globes, dreaming of far-off lands and adventures. One day, while rummaging through his late grandfather's things, he came across an old map. It was unlike any map he had ever seen before, with strange symbols and markings that seemed almost otherworldly. And upon closer inspection, he realized that this was no ordinary map. It was an app mode. With trembling hands, he installed the app on his phone and opened it up. As he swiped through the app, he noticed something strange. All of the streets and buildings were labeled in a language he didn't recognize. But as he continued to scroll, he saw something that made him stop dead in his tracks. There was a small village that wasn't on any of the other maps. It was like it had been hidden from view all these years. Curiosity piqued, Sam decided to pay this forgotten village a visit. When he arrived, he couldn't believe his eyes. The village was eerily silent, as if everyone had vanished into thin air. Houses were dilapidated and overgrown with vines. The streets were littered with debris, and the only sound was the wind rustling through the trees. He explored further and found a small cottage on the outskirts of town. It looked like no one had lived there in years, but something compelled him to go inside. As he stepped over the threshold, he felt a chill run down his spine. The air inside was heavy with the scent of decay, and the walls were covered in strange symbols that looked like they were drawn by an unseen hand. Suddenly, he heard a noise in the corner of the room. His heart pounded in his chest as he slowly turned to face the sound, but when he did, he saw nothing. Just then, a gust of wind slammed the door shut behind him, and he jumped in fright. He started to panic, flailing wildly until he found the doorknob and flung the door open. As he stumbled out of the house, he tripped over something and fell to the ground. When he looked down, he saw that he had stumbled upon an old leather notebook. It was filled with faded ink that told the story of the people who had lived here. The more he read, the more disturbed he became. The villagers had been driven mad by something lurking in the woods. They wrote of strange lights in the sky and whispers on the wind. The entries became more and more frantic as the villagers fell victim to the darkness that had descended upon them. Then the entries stopped abruptly, leaving Sam with more questions than answers. What had happened to them? What was the darkness that had consumed their minds? And why had this place been hidden from view for so long? Determined to find out the truth, he delved deeper into the mystery of the village and soon uncovered a horrifying secret that had been buried for centuries. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the village, Sam knew he had to get out of there. But as he turned to leave, he noticed something strange. The road he had come from had vanished. Panic surged through him as he realized he was trapped in this forsaken place. Then he saw it, a faint glow in the distance. Hope surged through him as he realized it could lead out of the village. But as he walked towards it, he noticed that it was coming from one of the houses. He hesitated for a moment, but his need to escape was too strong to resist. So he cautiously approached the house and knocked on the door. Suddenly, the door swung open and a face appeared in the doorway. It was pale and gaunt with sunken eyes that seemed to stare right through him. Sam screamed and stumbled back, knocking himself on the head. When he looked up, the figure was gone. Had he imagined it, or was there really a ghost haunting this village? Dazed and confused, Sam decided to explore the house and see if he could find some answers. As he stepped inside, he felt a chill run down his spine. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the only sound was the creaking of the floorboards beneath his feet. He started to feel like he was being watched, and his heart pounded in his chest. Then he saw it, a pair of eyes peering at him from the shadows. Sam froze, his blood running cold as he turned to face the eyes. But when he did, he saw nothing. Was he losing his mind? Was this all just a figment of his imagination? Or was there really something evil lurking in this house? Driven by curiosity and a desperate need for answers, he continued to explore the house, each room he entered becoming more and more unsettling. Just when he thought it couldn't get any worse, he heard a whisper in his ear. It was a voice that seemed to come from another time, filled with pain and despair. Sam whirled around to find the source of the voice, but there was nothing there. He decided to press on, hoping to find some answers in the darkness. But the whispers followed him, growing louder and more menacing. Just then, he saw it, a glimmer of light in the distance. Hope surged through him as he realized it could lead him to the source of the whispers. But as he walked towards it, he noticed that it was coming from the attic. With a deep breath, he climbed the creaky stairs and pushed open the attic door. The sight that greeted him was both fascinating and terrifying. There were strange symbols painted on the walls, and the air was thick with a palpable sense of dread. But what truly captured his attention was a small crystal in the center of the room. It was emitting a soft glow that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. As Sam approached the crystal, the whispers grew louder, swirling around him like a vortex. He reached out to touch it, and at that moment, everything changed. The crystal emitted a blinding flash of light, and when Sam regained his sight, he realized that he was no longer in the attic. He found himself in the middle of the village, but it was like nothing he had ever seen before. The houses were in ruins, the streets were overgrown, and a thick fog hung in the air, and then he saw them, the villagers. They were standing in the street, their faces pale and lifeless, their eyes vacant and soulless. Sam tried to call out to them, but his voice was hoarse and weak. They didn't seem to acknowledge his presence, and it was as if they were ghosts from another time. Suddenly, one of the villagers turned to him, and when he did, Sam saw a face that was pure evil. It was a face that had been buried for centuries, and it was now staring at him with a hunger that could never be satiated. The crystal, he realized with a jolt, it had brought him here to this forsaken place, and somehow he knew that this evil had been awakened. Now, somehow he needed to undo what he had done. Before the evil consumed him, he ran, stumbling through the fog, desperate to escape this nightmare. But the evil was relentless, and it pursued him, its laughter echoing through the ruins of the village. Just when he thought he had escaped, he heard a voice in his head. It was the same voice that had haunted him throughout his journey, and it was now whispering sweet nothings in his ear, tempting him to give in to the darkness. But Sam knew he couldn't. He had to fight. With a surge of adrenaline, he turned and faced his pursuer. And when he did, he saw the face that had haunted his nightmares. It was the face of the old woman who had greeted him at the house, and it was contorted in a snarl. Her eyes burned with a malevolent fire, and her teeth were bared in a vicious snarl. She lunged at him, and Sam screamed as he tried to fend her off. But she was relentless, and he could feel her icy fingers digging into his skin. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The woman collapsed and turned to dust. As the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, Sam woke up in his car. He had somehow managed to escape the village and all of the horrors that lurked within, but the experience had left him shaken. He knew that he had witnessed something truly evil, and he was afraid that it would follow him home. As he drove away, he couldn't help but glance back at the village, but when he did, he saw that it was gone. It was as if it had never been there at all, and he was left wondering if he had imagined the whole thing. But when he touched the crystal pendant around his neck, he knew that he wasn't going crazy. He had indeed visited the village and faced the horrors that awaited him there. But as the sun rose higher in the sky, he shook off the lingering fear and headed home. He knew that he would never forget what he had experienced, but he hoped that he had escaped the clutches of the evil that lurked in the forgotten village.